My name is Patricia, and for my job, I often have to travel. Last month, I booked a week-long stay at the Grandview Hotel in the city's old downtown. It wasn't the newest place, but it had a certain classic charm, heavy velvet curtains, dark wood paneling, and a silence that felt both luxurious and a little too deep. I was looking forward to a quiet, productive week. The first 2 days were exactly that, peaceful. I worked 8-room service and enjoyed the quiet comfort of room 408. The staff I met were professional and almost invisible, which is exactly what I prefer in a hotel. Then on the third evening, I ordered dinner, a simple salmon and salad. When the knock came, I opened the door to find a man I had never seen before. He was tall, incredibly thin, and wore the standard waiter uniform, but it looked strangely loose on him, like he had shrunk inside it. His name tag read Silas. Silas didn't speak immediately. He just stared at me with eyes that were too large and too bright for his pale face. There was a faint, almost sickly sweet smell coming from him, like old perfume and dust. "Your meal, miss," he finally said, but his voice was slow and dry, like leaves being dragged across concrete. He wheeled the cart in, but he didn't leave. He started setting my small table, moving each piece of cutlery with extreme, slow care. "You must be hungry," he murmured, looking at the salmon. "You need energy. A beautiful woman like you needs to be strong. The city is a hungry place, isn't it?" I tried to ignore the creepy tone. "Thank you, Silas, that will be all." He leaned in, and I took a step back. "You know this room," he whispered, his eyes flicking around the walls. "It suits you. It's private, safe. I've always liked the way the moonlight hits the carpet here in the mornings." My heart began to pound. How would he know how the moonlight hit the carpet in my room? Had he been in here when I wasn't around? "I need to close the door now, Silas," I said, my voice firm despite the fear in my stomach. He finally nodded, but the expression on his face wasn't one of apology. It was one of deep disappointment, like a child being told to stop playing. "Of course, enjoy your lovely private meal, Patricia." He used my first name. I had not given him my name. As soon as the lock clicked, I threw the tray onto the desk. I wasn't going to eat anything he had touched. I immediately grabbed my phone and called the front desk. "I need to speak to a manager right now," I told the receptionist, trying to keep my voice steady. "I just had a waiter named Silas up here, and he made me feel incredibly uncomfortable. He was saying very personal things, and I believe he has been in my room when I wasn't here." Within 15 minutes, the shift manager, a kind woman named Mrs. Davies, came to my room. I explained the whole incident, focusing on the way he knew my name and talked about the moonlight in the room. Mrs. Davies' face turned white. "Silas, that name is not in our system, Miss Patricia. We do not employ anyone by that name. The night staff is handled by Mr. Henderson." A wave of cold dread washed over me. I showed her the empty food cart, which he had clearly brought. Mrs. Davies promised to check the security footage immediately and assured me that I would be safe. She then called Mr. Henderson, the real night manager, who escorted her down the hall. I felt slightly better, but the terror was now real. I decided to pack my bags and check out first thing in the morning. I couldn't stay another night. I was lying in bed, fully dressed and nervously checking my phone for any update when I heard it. A soft, rhythmic scratching sound coming from the wall behind my headboard. Scratch, scratch, scratch. I sat up straight. It wasn't a mouse. It was too intentional, too close. I stood up and pressed my ear to the wall. I heard the sound again, followed by a dry, slow whisper that seemed to travel through the old building's air vents directly into my ear. "You shouldn't have done that, Patricia. You shouldn't have complained." It was Silas, he knew. Panic seized me. I rushed to the door, fumbling with the safety latch. Just as my fingers touched the handle, the door was hit from the outside with a tremendous force that rattled the entire frame. The sound was not a knock, it was a heavy, violent impact. "You can't leave," Silas' voice boomed, now loud and completely changed, full of savage rage. "You are mine now. You are meant to be private, safe here." The impacts kept coming, one after the other, each one harder than the last. I could hear the wood around the lock beginning to splinter and crack. I knew the door wouldn't hold. I looked desperately around the room. The huge windows. I was on the 4th floor, no. I ran to the closet looking for anything heavy, but it was empty. The door was now splintering badly, a crack running from the top bolt down to the handle. I could see a dark shape pressing against the gap. Suddenly, an idea flashed into my mind. The balcony. The Grandview Hotel was old, and many rooms shared small, decorative balconies that were separated by thin metal partitions. My room connected to the empty room next door. I grabbed the heavy wooden chair I had been sitting on, sprinted to the balcony door, yanked it open, and threw the chair through the metal partition dividing the balconies. The old metal screamed and tore away from the stone railing. Just as the partition broke open, the main room door splintered completely and Silas came crashing in. He was no longer trying to look polite. His face was a mask of cold, murderous rage, and his hands were curled into claws. I didn't hesitate. I jumped over the broken partition onto the next balcony and grabbed the railing. I was now on the balcony of room 407. Silas was right behind me, his enormous figure filling the gap I had made. He lunged, his fingers grazing my shoulder, tearing a piece of my jacket. I screamed and scrambled into room 407. Luckily, room 407 was unoccupied and the balcony door was unlocked. I pulled the heavy glass door shut and threw the interior deadbolt. It was a flimsy lock, but it would buy me a few seconds. I ran through the empty room and burst into the hallway, screaming at the top of my lungs. I didn't stop to call the police or the manager. I ran down the emergency stairs as fast as I could, my feet barely touching the steps. I could hear shouting and the sound of breaking glass from the 4th floor. I reached the lobby, covered in sweat and tears. I didn't even check out. I ran straight through the large glass doors and into the safety of the busy street, never looking back at the Grandview Hotel. The police investigated later. They found the broken door of room 408 and the destroyed balcony partition. They found my untouched luggage. But they found no evidence of a man named Silas. No fingerprints, no employee records, no sign of anyone other than the official night manager. I never stayed in a hotel with classic charm again. Every time I hear a door creak or a floorboard settle, I remember that dry, slow voice whispering my name and the terrible feeling of being hunted in a place where I was supposed to be safe. I escaped that night, but the privacy that Silas stole from me, I will never get back.